Welcome to today's Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're about to unpack something truly fascinating. Our main objective? We're going to deconstruct the theological architecture behind one of the most enduring, famous, ancient metaphors in history, the Christian soldier. Now, whether you grew up hearing about this or you're encountering it for the very first time, we're going to look at how this idea is built from the ground up, relying entirely on the exact source texts that established it. By treating these concepts kind of like architectural building blocks, we can figure out exactly why they've had such a massive psychological impact over the centuries. So, let's get right into it.
We're starting right at the bedrock with this raw source text. It reads, "When God makes something, it is always perfect. So when he created a soldier, they are perfect. The Christian soldier has armor that if worn properly, it cannot be penetrated. Even if the Christian soldier is killed, as long as they obey their commander, they have victory even in death." Now notice how this single, really concise text contains three distinct, unbelievably bold claims about human mortality, purpose, and defense. It's a complete worldview packed into just a handful of sentences.
Okay, let's dive into this outline for today. We'll start broadly with the Christian soldier metaphor itself, and then examine its three supporting pillars: the perfect creation, impenetrable armor, and victory in death, before wrapping up with the ultimate commander.
Section 1. The Christian Soldier Metaphor, a Theological Architecture.
What's really brilliant here is how the source text essentially slices human existence into three highly structured, purpose-driven military phases. Step 1 establishes identity, the concept of a flawless creation. Step 2 outlines defense, the provision of a literally impenetrable armor. And Step 3? It defines the outcome, a pretty radical claim of victory even in death. It's like a complete start-to-finish life cycle of a soldier, but entirely mapped out through a theological lens. And remember, we're taking a completely objective look at this framework just to understand how it functions mechanically as a metaphor.
Moving to Section 2, the perfect creation, the foundation of the soldier.
Right, so you really can't have an invincible soldier without first defining where that soldier comes from, right? So the crucial point is how this doctrine leans on specific scriptures to establish the absolute perfection of this initial creation. It's anchored all over the place. We've got Genesis 1:31 stating that God saw all he had made and it was very good. Then Deuteronomy 32:4 backs this up, declaring, "He is the rock, his works are perfect." And finally, Ephesians 2:10 speaks directly to how a believer is actually made, calling them God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works. Put them all together, and these verses build the argument that the soldier is fundamentally flawless, but specifically because of the perfection of the Creator, not the creation itself.
Section 3, impenetrable armor, defense beyond human capability.
And that brings us to the second pillar of our source text. This is the fascinating claim of an armor that literally cannot be pierced. We're not just talking about a really good defense. We're talking about absolute, 100% guaranteed invulnerability. Think about human armor for a second. It's heavy, penetrable metal, forged by human hands, and eventually, it breaks down. But the theological concept of God's armor flips this entirely on its head. It's spiritually impenetrable precisely because it isn't made of human effort. Its strength comes from being formed by God's own character. It is, quite literally, the protection of God himself.
And this brilliantly illustrates that point. In the famous Armor of God passage in the New Testament, specifically Ephesians chapter 6, verse 16, the Apostle Paul explicitly details an impenetrable defense when he brings up the shield. He writes, "Take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one." Catch that? Not some of the arrows, all of them. The language is totally absolute. It's designed to assure the wearer that this defense system doesn't have a single flaw. Actually, there's a fantastic historical text that adds a ton of depth here. The 1655 Puritan classic, The Christian in Complete Armor by William Gurnall. Gurnall argues that the real reason this defense is absolute is because the armor isn't a physical object or even a magical one. The armor is Christ himself. And because of that, Gurnall wrote that the soldiers made totally immune to, and I love this phrasing, Satan's cannon, provided the soldier stands firm in their faith. It's an incredibly powerful visualization of an unbreakable divine defense mechanism.
Section 4. Victory in death, redefining the ultimate loss.
Section 5. The Ultimate Commander, Obedience, and the Afterlife.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Because in standard military terms, death is the ultimate loss, right? Game over. But this doctrine completely redefines mortality, flipping the ultimate defeat into the ultimate victory.
Now, it's critical to clarify that this redefined victory relies entirely on obedience to the commander. We see this built across several texts through explicit military metaphors. Over in 2 Timothy 2, Paul tells believers to endure suffering like a good soldier, pointing out that a soldier avoids civilian affairs just to please his commanding officer. Then, Revelation 2:10 says, faithfulness even to the point of death yields life as a victor's crown. And Romans 8 ensures believers they're more than conquerors, absolutely convinced that neither death nor life can sever that divine love. The progression is super clear: obedience, endurance, and ultimate reward.
Okay, I want to slow down our pacing right here just for a moment. Death has been swallowed up in victory. That is from 1 Corinthians 15:54. And it represents the absolute climax of this entire metaphor. Honestly, the gravity of this passage cannot be overstated. It is the ultimate victory over death declaration. The very thing that humanity fears most, mortality itself, is literally consumed and defeated by this theological framework.
So, tracing this architecture back, we can see a seamless progression supporting those incredibly bold claims from our original source text. Ephesians 6 equips the soldier with divine armor, Timothy 2 demands unwavering obedience to the commander, and 1 Corinthians 15 delivers the ultimate eternal reward, victory over death. It's a remarkably tight, self-supporting theological structure that moves effortlessly from divine equipment all the way to eternal outcome. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is the profound question it leaves us with. How does viewing human mortality through the lens of a perfect, impenetrable soldier change how we confront our greatest fears? Think about it. If a person truly believes they are flawlessly created, divinely protected, and victorious even in the absolute face of death, how does that rewrite their entire approach to adversity in this life? It's an incredibly deep psychological concept, and I really hope seeing its architecture mapped out today has given you a fresh understanding of this ancient, powerful text. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep questioning and keep learning.